For nearly 3,000 years, a Phoenician ship lay under the sea doing what ancient ships usually do best, refusing to answer questions. Then archaeologists began the delicate business of bringing it back, not as treasure, not as myth, but as wet wood with an attitude problem. Because when a ship from the Phoenician world survives, even in pieces, it is not just a boat. It is a page of history that had been soaked, buried, and almost forgotten. The Phoenicians were not a single empire in the neat schoolbook sense. They were a network of city-states and traders from the Levant who turned the Mediterranean into a working sea lane. They carried goods, styles, gods, metals, glass, dyes, and writing systems. Their alphabet would have a long afterlife, which is more than can be said for most shipping labels. But texts and cargo tell only part of the story. To understand how people moved across the sea, you need the thing that moved them, the hull itself. Ancient shipbuilding involved choices: how to fasten planks, shape the keel, distribute cargo, survive waves, beach landings, and the occasional captain who believed weather was merely a suggestion. Phoenician-era ship remains are rare because wood is not a cooperative historical material. It rots, breaks, burns, or gets recycled by practical people who do not know future museums are waiting. So when a wreck is found preserved under sediment, the sea has accidentally become an archive, poorly catalogued, damp, and guarded by bureaucracy with scuba gear. Finding an ancient wreck is only the first problem. The second problem is persuading it not to disintegrate the moment you show enthusiasm. Wood that has survived underwater for centuries often survives because water fills the spaces where structure used to be. Remove it too quickly, and the timber can shrink, warp, and collapse like an overconfident soufflé. So archaeologists document before they disturb. Every plank, peg, curve, scar, and nail hole becomes evidence. The wreck is mapped like a crime scene, except the suspect is time and the weapon is salt water. The ship itself belonged to a world of coastal navigation, trading stops, local winds, and practiced seamanship. Ancient sailors did not simply drift heroically westward. They calculated, observed, loaded, repaired, and worried. Cargo remains can identify trade, ballast can hint at route, pottery can suggest date and contact, but the hull answers a different question: what kind of machine carried all this? Recovery requires engineering, not just courage. Supports must be built. Sediment must be removed carefully. A lifted hull must be kept wet, cushioned, and stabilized. History inconveniently has handling instructions. Once out of the sea, the ship may spend years in conservation. Chemicals replace water in the wood. Drying is controlled. The public sees a dramatic headline, the artifact sees a very long spa treatment. This is why recovered does not mean grabbed. It means negotiated away from decay, one cautious step at a time. And that care matters. A pot can tell you what someone carried. A ship can tell you how far knowledge had traveled before the cargo even left the beach. We do not know the exact final day. Storm, grounding, overload, navigational error. The sea keeps those details with professional smugness. By the midpoint, the drama is not the wreck sinking. It is the patient modern attempt to keep it from dying a second time. Turning point comes when the ship stops being a Phoenician wreck and becomes a set of decisions made by builders. Ancient Mediterranean hulls often used carefully fitted planks fastened with joints and pegs. This was skilled labor. The ship was not a floating box, it was a flexible argument with the sea. Shipwrights had to balance strength, weight, cargo capacity, and repairability. Build too heavy and profit suffers. Build too weak, and everyone learns a brief lesson about margins. The layout of a wreck can reveal how cargo was packed and how weight was distributed. That is not glamorous, unless you remember that a badly balanced ship becomes an archaeological site ahead of schedule. Phoenician traders helped connect the eastern and western Mediterranean. Surviving hulls show the practical technology behind that network, the wooden infrastructure of exchange. Each measurement can refine dates, regional styles, and shipbuilding traditions. A curve in a plank may settle an argument that a dozen ancient writers did not bother to mention. The famous Phoenicians of legend are merchants of purple, sailors of distant waters, inventors of letters. The recovered ship gives us the unromantic version: wet timber, repaired seams, practical design. And unromantic evidence is often the most trustworthy kind. It has no speech prepared. It simply endured. A recovered ship changes scale. It pulls Phoenician history down from maps and legends into working materials. Beams, seams, cargo space, repairs. We often remember the Phoenicians for the alphabet because writing flatters historians. But ships were equally central. Without vessels, letters, goods, and ideas would have had a much longer walk. For the public, the wreck becomes a rare encounter with ordinary ancient technology. Not a royal tomb, not a palace. A commercial tool that survived because it failed in exactly the right place. Its survival also creates responsibility. Conserved wood needs stable conditions. A ship saved from the sea can still be lost to neglect, funding cuts, or the enemy of all heritage, temporary storage. The recovery reminds us that underwater archaeology is not treasure hunting with better vocabulary. Context matters. A removed object without records becomes a souvenir with academic shoes. The wreck also humanizes the crew. Someone trusted these planks, someone loaded them, someone checked the sky and thought, perhaps incorrectly, that the day would be manageable. By 90% of the story, the point is clear. A few boards can revise how we imagine an entire maritime civilization. The Phoenicians were not ghosts gliding across maps. They were builders, repairers, loaders, pilots, and risk-takers moving through a sea that rewarded skill and punished optimism. The recovered ship does not tell us everything. It does not name the helmsman, quote the merchants, or describe the moment the voyage went wrong, but it tells us enough to make abstraction uncomfortable. Phoenician trade was not just arrows on a map. It was weight, wood, labor, salt, and risk. For centuries, the sea kept the vessel quiet. Then, by luck and careful hands, it spoke in joints, curves, and scars. History rarely rises from the deep in perfect condition. More often, it arrives waterlogged, fragile, and expensive to store, which is inconvenient, but very on brand for the past.